Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I think we were here. So I'm assuming everybody has the previous solution, which had all of the stuff in it.
No,
were you in the first meeting, like?
I was, but I need to copy it over again.
Okay, so yeah. So if you just go to M, drafting, Delira, I believe it's in drafting training. Drafting training.
It's a good thing you're doing your class today. My trial license expires tomorrow.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh. I wonder if anyone's going to have problems with that. I've heard that it doesn't actually matter. Like, it's just for, I don't know.
Just to scare us?
Maybe, yeah, it's to scare you into buying it. If you copy over all this stuff, you're going to need this, basically this whole folder.
You're
just
on
looking
your
at your
other
blue
screen.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Everything in the M, drafting, Delira, drafting training. You could just basically copy over this whole drafting training 2 folder over to somewhere on your hard drive.
I'm all set.
And then if you double click, oh, you're doing that, Mike, right now?
No, I got it.
Okay. So once you have it on your desktop or your hard drive anywhere, double click this drafting training 2. And if it asks you how to open the file, click Visual Studio 2019. Let me share my other screen. It's bigger. Oh. So if it asks you for security, just click OK. It doesn't matter. And you should have this solution now. Just to kind of iterate or reiterate, Mike, since you weren't in the last one. Let me realize this. On the side here, did you get to this screen yet, Mike?
Yeah, I need to bring up the solution.
Okay, cool. Just to reiterate, a solution is just like the file structure in Visual Studio. And inside of your solution, you could have different projects. Inside of the projects, you can have files.
Is that Visual Basic?
This is C# right now. Visual Studios is the name of the program where you can write the code. It's the IDE.
Oh, so if I'm in Visual Basic, I can't open this then, right? Yes, no, maybe.
Visual Basic. You want to share your screen?
Okie dokes.
Are you in Visual Studio?
So I just closed it, but I just double click this. It takes me to
Okay.
Visual Studio.
Sure.
And now I'm here.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's where you want to be.
Oh, but I don't see your C# stuff.
Oh yeah, on the right side where it says has a bunch of files, you have to open the file.
Which one do I
Those
open?
Just open program.
Tacos?
Or taco, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Now you
and
got
then now I can edit. Okay,
exactly.
Cool.
But let me just go ahead and share my screen. Are you good, Mike?
Yep.
Is everyone else good? We're going to actually create a new class today. And if this is giving you an error, just delete this iTaco for now, because we're going to move on from using it.
So delete iTaco.
Just delete iTaco. We don't need it. We're going to create a different class.
Hey, Alan, sorry to interrupt. Really quick, how did you get like the Better Taco and the other programs here off to your right?
What does yours have?
I just have the one that I created last time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. If
Okay.
you don't have Better Taco, we're not going to use it this time.
Gotcha.
And if you have errors in this error list, you can double click on them to go to them, because your program is not gonna compile if you have errors here. If you double click on it, it'll take you to the code and then just delete. We don't care about the iTaco. We don't want it anymore. Does
Oh,
anybody have any stuff in their error list?
I have one about iTaco.
So just double click on it and then delete all the iTaco stuff.
Okay, professional.
Cool. Everyone good? No errors in your error list?
You have the program.cs up there. How did you bring that up?
Just double click on it.
Oh, there it is. Got it.
Oh no, this is here.
Right. Okay.
Oh, I commented everything out in there.
Yep.
It's okay. Don't worry about program.cs.
Oh, okay, ignore this one. Go back to Better Tacos.
So what we want to do is we want to add a new class. I think you can do it here and add class. We're going to make a burrito this time. So just to review, you can create a class. A class is like a kind of structure for your variables. You can put fields or methods inside of your class. For example, I'm making a class called burrito. I'm going to give it one field called, I don't know, let's just do meat. So the type is going to be a string. And then the name of the variable is going to be meat. And then inside of a class, it's called a field. And then methods are like functions, but inside of classes. So we're going to give it a void type method. And we're just going to call it wrap. And it will be to wrap your burrito. Oh, it looks like you need curly braces. So it's a very simple class called burrito, one field called meat, and one method called wrap. This is just kind of a review of classes, fields, and methods. Any questions before we move on? I'm going to go into interfaces next. Cool. I'm going to assume everyone's good. I'm going to go through this pretty quick because I want to get to the Revit stuff. So interfaces, what is an interface? An interface is kind of like a convention that you create for your class to follow. And why do we use them? It kind of makes it easier to maintain and scale your code. And on the next page, I kind of have an example of using an interface in C# and what it looks like. Basically, interfaces typically have this I in front of them, and other classes implement them using little colons. And inside of your interface, it'll have whatever your class needs to have. It can have methods, it can have properties, which are actually different than fields, which I'll explain. I think with an example, this will be a lot more clear. So I'm going to actually hop off again, go back into Visual Studio, and we're going to write a quick, easy interface and give you a better example of like why to use it maybe. So go back to add. And then if you have this, I remember last time some people didn't have this screen, but if you have an interface, add an interface. If not, you could just add a class. It doesn't really matter. But we'll call this iBurrito. Visual Studio is kind of lagging. Cool. So now we have an interface called iBurrito. I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm going to add a field. It's actually called a property in this case. And we're just going to make it a double. we're going to call it calories. And this is the part that's you guys are, I'm not going to go too into it, but basically this is called a property. I don't want to get too into it, like I said, but this is basically like a special kind of field. And if you want to have a field inside of your interfaces, you need these get and set keywords, or one of the two. Basically, don't worry about it too much. And we're going to add another method to this interface. It's also going to be called wrap. It'll be of a void type. And this one doesn't need the curly brackets because inside of an interface, you're just defining what needs to be in this interface. And any questions so far? Okay. So if everyone has this down, you could actually create another class inside of the same file. So I'm going to show you why like you would even want to have this interface. I'm going to make different kinds of burritos using the same interface. For example, I'm going to make a class called wet burrito. And this wet burrito class is going to implement the iBurrito interface by typing this colon and then typing iBurrito. And as you see here, it's Visual Studio is putting this in red and yelling at me, saying it does not implement interface member iBurrito.calories and iBurrito.wrap, which means that any class that uses this interface needs to have the things that are inside of it. So to make this red go away, I would just put a calories property and a wrap method. And now it's okay with it. And if we wanted to create different classes that implemented the same interface, like they could all be iBurrito, I could make another one called chimichanga. And it would need to, I'm just going to copy and paste these over. I'm going to literally copy and paste. And this chimichanga is implementing the iBurrito interface because it has the same, or it has the fields and methods that are inside of the iBurrito, but it has the same interface. But these different classes could do different things. For like example, for a chimichanga, since they're fried, if you wanted to have a method called fry, you could add that to your chimichanga. And a wet burrito, I don't know, if you want to have a method called like put sauce or something, since wet burritos have sauce, you could have different methods and fields between your different classes, but they still write to the same interface. So they could have different, you can make sure they have the same functionality, even though they're different classes. Any questions about this? Like, I know it's might be a little convoluted, but it's important to understand the basic idea because we're going to be using two interfaces to create the Revit Addin because it requires it. Anyone there? Any?
I have 9 errors.
You have 9
How did,
errors.
how did you get 0?
You want to share your screen? Maybe we can go through it in your screen slower, Jobo, so people can kind of.
Yeah, sure. Let me see, y'all. So it says my wrap is yeah.
So it
not
needs to
wrapping.
have curly brackets because.
So where would I put the curly
wrap,
bracket?
So delete the
These
semicolons. Keep the parentheses. So retype the parentheses and then press enter. Type the curly brackets, and then you're good.
Oh, why was the curly brackets needed?
Because in the iBurrito, the wrap is just like it's like a template. It's not a real method. The interface is just telling you what the classes need to have, whereas the actual method inside of Wet Burrito has to have the curly brackets is because it's an actual method.
Okay. And this is all just,
Yeah, don't worry about it.
oh, so these errors are from like the last class. So should
Yeah,
I
it's from last
try
class.
to
Just comment it
delete
out
them?
or delete it. Do whatever.
Oh, so goodbye, Better Taco. Um,
Yeah, don't worry like if you guys are getting errors on this. It's just kind of to get the idea so we could actually make the Revit add-in.
oh yeah.
Cool. You can just delete that.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
Sure.
I've got 8 errors.
Yeah, let's not worry about it too much, Mike. Honestly, like this project is just, we're gonna create a new project inside of the solution, so it doesn't matter too much.
Okay, I just got rid of all my errors.
Nice. So we kind of went over interfaces, probably a little convoluted, but it's important because it's going to come into creating a Revit add-in. So a Revit add-in, as everyone knows, pretty much, it usually is like inside of Revit, you can have buttons, you can have other kind of dockable panels and stuff. But when you're actually creating it, it needs to contain these 4 things, which I'll explain. It needs to have a .NET Framework DLL file. It needs to contain reference to Revit API files. It needs to have an add-in manifest, and it needs to implement 2 interfaces, iExternal application and iExternal commands. This is kind of goes with the interface thing I was explaining before. It needs your add-in is going to need to implement 2 interfaces, one called iExternal application and one called iExternal commands. Anyways, I'm going to just kind of explain these line items one by one. They probably don't mean anything to you, but I'll explain them. So the Revit API. So what is an API? It's a programming interface. It's basically a way to interact with certain software components through code. In our case, we're going to be using the Revit API, which you can use to interact with Revit through code. And inside of the API, there's many classes. If you follow these 2 links here, one goes to a documentation. I think we can just kind of go through it briefly. I think Zach was showing this last time, but this kind of is reference for, not showing anything? Maybe because it's in Windows or Internet Explorer. But if you go here, it should have a bunch of stuff here. So these are like all of the namespaces inside of the Revit API. There's a bunch. Like if you open any of these, there's a bunch of classes, like hundreds, maybe thousands of classes.
Is it on
Like
the screen or
Oh,
not?
is it the wrong screen?
There you go.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So if you go on to this Revit API docs, you could see these namespaces. Inside of them, there's classes. A lot of different kinds of classes for different things you can do in Revit. As you can see, there's like hundreds, maybe thousands. This is like a really important resource that I use to figure out what stuff is doing inside of the API and what's possible inside of Revit. There's also this, can you guys see my screen?
Oh, Alan, we see your presenter view.
That's fine.
Okay.
You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
quite offended by the presenter view.
But this other resource, the building coder, it's this weird European guy who is really into Revit. He I think he works at Autodesk, and he gives a bunch of examples that you can use to create Revit add-ins. I use his blog all the time. If you want to ever get into doing Revit add-ins, I recommend checking it out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about namespaces and assemblies. So inside of your Visual Studio, on the right side, you should see a little thing called references. If you click the little drop-down arrow, you'll see a bunch of things pop up. And these things are basically assemblies that your project is referencing. You can kind of think of them almost as libraries. Inside of these assemblies, which you can think of as libraries, there's a bunch of classes, a bunch of stuff bunch of code that you can use to create different different classes, different methods, different functions. And some of these are actually DLL files. A DLL file is something that can't be executed, but it can be referenced as a library. And that's what we're going to be creating today when we create the Revit add-in. But first off, the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to need to add a reference to the Revit API so we can use all of their libraries, basically. So I'm going to back out of here. We're going to go back into our solution. And we're actually going to create a new project. So on the right side by solution, if you right click, go to add. We're going to do a new project. So let's look up C# in the search bar. What we want to find is a .dll project. I think, let's see. So we want to find this class library .NET framework. And this is a project for creating a C# class library or .dll. When you find that, double click on it. And is everyone able to find this? Cool. So double click it. So we'll call this project just like Revit, or let's call it drafting training. Location. I'll save that on my desktop somewhere. Or you know what? Yeah, let's do that. And then once this is good, you have it saved where you want to. I'm going to save mine on my desktop or on my hard drive somewhere. Hit create. So let's try drafting training 2. Okay, let's try drafting training 3.
Too many drafting trainings.
Yeah. Anyways, once you've created something, it doesn't really matter what it's called. I just called mine drafting training 3. It created a new project, and this one, unlike the testing project, you can't actually execute it. If you hit start, it's gonna yell at you, or might even crash your Visual Studio. Hopefully it doesn't do that. But basically, you can't really execute. Oh, I think I was starting something else. Either way, just take my word for it. You can't execute this on its own. But what we want to do right now is go to references. And then we're going to want to find the Revit API DLL files. So once you have this screen, go to browse. This might be different on your guys' computers. We can all go through it until we all find it.
Did you do add reference?
Yeah. So if you go back, right click on references, hit add reference, and then go to browse. You're going to want to find where you have not AutoCAD, Revit saved. normally it would be in C, program files, Autodesk, Revit. I think we'll do Revit 2018. So Revit 2018, everyone has Revit 2018, right? Josh, do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're in this Revit 2018 folder, you want to find Revit API.dll. As I mentioned before, this is the library we need. And we're actually going to need one more library from that same folder. Revit API UI.dll. These are just two separate libraries that the Revit API kind of uses. Once you have these, you're going to click OK. And they should be added to your solution. So now you can use all of these classes that are.
Wait, what was the second one we needed? Revit API, what?
Revit API UI.
Oh, yeah.
So let me go back. So C, program files, Autodesk, Revit 2018. So Revit API UI. So you can just type it and it'll come up, or you could scroll down and find it. Did you find it, Jobo?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So this is what allows our program to essentially interact with Revit later, right?
Yes. By adding these two references later on, you'll be able to interact with Revit. Without these, you wouldn't be able to use all of the code like here, all of these like classes and stuff.
I see. And then this is provided by Autodesk,
Autodesk, yeah.
because
They
they
created this interface
Yeah.
for developers to interact with.
And then so without it, like how would you work around?
I don't think you could, unless you have some interface to write to. You couldn't, because you don't have the source code.
Oh, so
Revit.
you would have to break into the source code somehow?
I guess break into the source code and write your own API or something. Honestly, I'm not sure.
Alright, that's class 3, right?
I honestly don't know, Jobo. I don't know if it's even possible.
How to hack Revit.
But there's one thing that you guys need to do. So if you go to solution, right click, and then go down to properties. This screen should pop up, this properties pages. There should be this radio button, single startup project checked. You're going to want to change it to the project you just created, whether it's drafting training 1, drafting training 2, drafting training 3. Then this means that when you click this start button, this is the project that's going to start up. Press OK. And I know I mentioned before that these DLL projects can't be started, but there's kind of a way around that I'll explain. Did everybody get that part? Cool. So if we go back to adding we already did this. So the next thing that we're going to need is an Addin manifest file. So what this is basically a text file with a bunch of configuration data. When Revit starts up, it's going into your add-ins folder. It's looking at all of these .addin files, and it's reading a bunch of this code to figure out like which add-ins to load into Revit. And since we're going to be creating an add-in, we're going to be kind of modifying one of these .addin files. So Revit knows to load your add-in when it starts up. And we're not going to be recreating all of this. I actually have the file saved. You're just going to be modifying 3 lines. So yeah, let's actually just do that now. Find this M drafting, A delete drafting training. And then we're going to copy the file over to your add-ins folder and make the changes necessary so your add-in works. So you go to my M drive folder. So drafting training. You'll see this .addin file.
Mhm.
So this file is actually going to need to get copied to your add-ins folder, which is going to be in C, program data. This may be a hidden file on your computer, depending on whether or not you turned in on hidden files or not. If it's hidden, you'll just type in program data and File Explorer will find it for you. Autodesk, Revit, add-ins, 2018. It looks like I actually already copied it there. So
Sorry, can you
Yeah,
go
went
back and
fast. Yeah, I didn't see
Sure.
where you
okay,
Autodesk, Revit.
yeah. Please feel free to yell if like you need me to slow down.
Oh, I feel free to. That's quite all right. Addin's 2018. Okay, in there. And just paste it in here.
Just paste it in there, and then we're going to open it up with Notepad and edit a couple lines. So
Hey,
is
I
yours
don't-
like white?
I don't have the, oh, Revit. So is there a reason why you don't have to, oh, never mind, it does navigate you to 2018.
Yeah.
And then just paste it in.
Just paste it in, and then we're going to open it, like I mentioned.
And then edit it to match our burrito file.
We're going to edit it to match something we haven't created yet.
Okay.
But if your thing doesn't have a little notepad icon, you're going to need to do open with and then find notepad. It might be like the third or fourth option here.
Yeah, mine doesn't even have.
You can't do open with, James?
Oh wait, never mind. Just kidding. Found it.
Okay, cool.
Slightly different than yours, but
Yeah. So then you want to open it with notepad. And you should have this open now. The only things that we really need to change are the assembly. This needs to match where your project is going to be located and where it's building the files. This add-in ID needs to be unique. Every add-in in Revit needs to have a different add-in ID. And then this full class name is also going to need to be changed. This one is pretty easy. I think we can just call this drafting training, whatever your project name is. Mine's drafting training 3. So we'll do drafting training 3 and then .app. So that's this full class name line. Everyone good?
yep.
So the next thing is we need to make sure this ID is unique. What I actually do is I go to Google, I type in GUID generator. This will generate a unique ID for you. So once you're on this website, just click this button and then it'll generate this unique ID. I copy it, you can copy to clipboard. and then you're going to want to copy it to that the add-in line.
What is a GUID generator?
Basically, it's generating a unique ID. I think it's called generated unique ID. I forgot, or generic, maybe generic unique ID. No, globally unique identifier. It's an acronym for some type of ID.
But how do you know it's unique though, other than trusting that it's unique?
It says there are, if every human on Earth generated 600 million GUIDs, there would be only a 50% probability of a duplicate. So basically, there's just so many combinations of this that
They'll
you're not going to have a
probably be
duplicate. Yeah,
unique.
it's very, very low probability. Yeah.
So is it frowned upon to like create your own then?
I usually don't.
Okay.
So
There might be
that's a
rules
yes,
or
James.
something. What'd you say, Josh?
That's a yes, James. It's frowned upon. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. I never do.
You never use your social security number?
I mean, let's not talk about that.
Oh, there was no add-in ID line on mine.
Oh, really?
Oh, wait.
Should be like it might not be in the same order.
Yeah, that's weird. No, there isn't.
Oh, really? So if for some reason there isn't, then James, what you do is you literally have to type it out.
Okay.
So Alan, what's the point? What's the point of having a unique number? I mean, is this going, I guess I'm assuming going back into like a Microsoft database where that number is going to be associated now with this?
Well, see, I have like a bunch of add-ins in my add-ins folder. Every time Revit starts up, it goes through this folder. It loads all these add-ins, and each one is identified by an ID. If any of them are the same, it'll crash, basically.
Hey, is it the same thing as client ID?
I think client ID is different. It needs to be add-in ID.
So that's weird. I don't know why. So I have a client ID and I copied the one from your file. So
That's weird.
that's
If
weird.
you did though, then you can maybe just change it from client to add-in.
Addin, okay.
But just make sure that it has these little arrow brackets, and then it also has this backslash on the second arrow bracket of that same arrow bracket name.
Kind of like HTML.
Yeah, it's basically, this is XML. It's very similar to HTML. It's I forgot what that kind of language is called. Okay. So the last thing we need to do though is we need to set the assembly to where your project is saved. Otherwise, Revit won't know where to find the DLL file you generate. So,
So mine is missing some of those other lines.
really?
Yeah. Can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, sure. Huh.
Did I grab the wrong one, I wonder?
Yeah, you're in communicator.
Huh.
You're not in drafting training.
Right.
Just, yeah, don't save that. Like close it in without saving. Yeah, don't save. So open drafting training. Looks like you opened communicator on accident.
Oh, that's weird. How did I get here?
Oh, that's right. It's just the file right below communicator. See there's communicator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So open with, okay. Hey, look, it looks like the same as yours.
Yep.
Funny. Okay, I'll shut up now.
That's okay. We can just go through this. So yeah, you can copy and paste the GUID and then the full class name. Put whatever your project is, whether it's drafting training 2, drafting training 3,
Yeah, mine,
or class library 1. Okay, just call it class library 1. Class library 1.app though.
Is that case sensitive, Alan?
Not 100% sure. I would assume it is though.
no, I can just hit save.
Yeah. And then the last thing is we need to find the the place where you saved your, you can still share if you want, James.
Okay. Certainly.
We need to find the place where your solution is saved in.
Oh, yeah, that's my temp folder, I think. It's weird.
I think we can find it from Visual Studios.
Where did I see this? Oh, right
Yeah,
here.
actually, so if you go to Solution, James, right click
To where?
on the right hand where it says Solution Explorer, there should be like a little solution with a little solution icon that says Class Library 1, one of one projects. Or actually, sorry, go to Class Library 1, the projects itself. Right click that, and then go to Open Folder in File Explorer. And you see a bunch of folders.
Okay.
These are like where your project is actually building stuff. If you go into bin, debug, I believe this is going to be the folder you want. This is where, when you press that start button, Visual Studio is actually compiling the code. So just copy and paste that. And then replace the assembly line with that thing you just copy and pasted.
Do I want to keep Revit Addin DLL
Um,
or just the
yes. Because you're now going to change that Revit Addin to Class Library 1. Whatever your project name is. Oh, and with a capital C.
whole? Yeah, that's capital.
Oh, is it? Really?
Yeah. You want to see a lowercase? Check this out.
Really?
Do you see
Oh.
the difference?
It looks the same on my screen. Oh, okay, yeah, it's just because it was zoomed out. Cool. Wait, it looks like. Okay, I guess that's where it is because that was in your file explorer, right?
Yeah. Everything look good here?
Everything looks good to me. Does everyone else have that line saved? Was everyone able to find where their solution was?
Yeah.
Cool. So I will grab the screen back, James.
All right. Hold on. This little pop-up window is covering my stop share button. There it goes.
Yeah, I hate that. I know this is kind of maybe not writing code yet, but these are the necessary steps you kind of have to take, because now we could actually write some code to actually create our add-in. We're pretty much ready to go now. And as I mentioned before, with interfaces, you're going to need them now. You're going to need two interfaces. The first is a class that implements this iExternal application interface. This is going to be, it's going to have two methods, one called onStartup, one called onShutdown. It also needs to have this attribute line here. Don't really worry about what this is, but your class is going to need this or it's not going to work. And I think we'll just go ahead and create this one first. So in Visual Studios, we're going to go ahead in your drafting training file, whatever it's called, class library 1, doesn't matter. We're going to create a new class. We're going to call it app. It's important that this name matches what's in your .addin file, because this is the class that in this full class name line that Revit is going to be looking for when it opens up your add-in. So if it doesn't match, then your add-in's not going to load correctly. So it's important that it's like app or whatever you put it as.
Did we put it as app though?
I think everyone put it as app. If it says .app here, then it's looking for app.
Okay.
So we'll make this public. And then we're gonna have it implement the iExternal application. You notice IntelliSense isn't helping me because you're gonna have to include namespaces. If you see up here, it says like using system collections generic. These are like references to the libraries that are inside of your project. We're also going to need to reference the namespaces inside of these Revit APIs. Not to get into too much, if you hover over, if you've typed iExternal application, case sensitive, you should be able to hit this drop down and hit this button. If that doesn't work for you, you can just type in using autodesk.revit.ui. And you'll have this namespace inside of this class file. So you can use this iExternal application, which is necessary to start a Revit Addin.
Which one do we select?
I
Click
think
on the
it implement autodesk.revit.ui. Let's see.
Or using Autodesk Revit UI?
Yes, yeah, using autodesk.revit.ui. But as you see, it's like in red. If you hover over, if you have this iExternal application, types case sensitive, and hover over it and hit implement interface, it'll actually add for you the things that you need to fulfill this interface, which in this case is an on shutdown method and an on startup method that returns a result. We won't get into too much what that is, but basically it's something inside of the Revit library. It's returning a result, and it also takes in this UI controlled application input. As I mentioned before, we need that other line, that transaction mode attribute. I don't actually remember. What is it exactly? Transaction. And then transaction. If you hover over it, it's going to add another namespace. You'll need this one too, using autodesk.revit.attributes. And then I believe you can now, it'll now know, because you have this namespace inside of your class file, it can now kind of find everything that's in there. Oh, and I need to complete that with parentheses. And you can kind of just copy this over.
How come for this, you don't need to end it with a semicolon? Actually, I noticed that a lot of these lines aren't ended with semicolons.
Yeah, it's just a different construct, Jobo. This is called an attribute. It's kind of just like its own thing. It's a different thing. I'm not going to really get into it, but basically it doesn't need a semicolon, and it's ended with these, it's like these square brackets. Cool. Was everyone kind of at this point?
My transaction is still highlighted red after I added the,
Autodesk.revit.attributes?
yeah.
Really?
Transaction is not a valid declaration type. It is only valid on class declarations.
So do you have a public class here? You want to share your screen?
Oh, I typed in the wrong line. That's why.
Is it above the class line?
It's below the class line.
Yeah, it needs to be above the class because it's an attribute added to the class.
I see. I don't know what that means, but I'll take
Yeah.
your word for it.
Yeah.
Oh, there
Okay.
we go. All green.
Nice. Just to kind of get into a little bit though, these two methods, on shutdown and on startup, if you had followed the interface thing, excuse me, the little drop down, it would make it for you. You could also just type it in, but these basically, when your application starts up, it's doing on startup, it's going to do whatever inside of this method. On shutdown, it's going to do whatever's inside of this method. So on startup is actually when you add buttons to Revit. I don't think we're going to have enough time to really go through it in detail.
So what does the throw keyword or method do?
So an exception is basically when code runs into like an error, and it's like basically you could think of it just like a little message that pops up when your code runs into an error.
Oh,
So right now, when we start it up, it's gonna give us probably an error message. But just to make sure that what is this? Just to make sure that we've done everything correctly, we can actually see it throw that error message. But to actually,
but when you're actually writing a add-in, you would delete that line.
you're gonna delete this.
Yeah, makes
This
sense.
is just a placeholder.
Got it.
But there's one more step we need to do to actually test our add-in, and that is we need to right-click on Drafting Training 3 or whatever your project's called. Right-click your project, go to Properties. And then you're gonna have like a window on the left-hand side. You're gonna want to go to Debug. In Debug, you should have these radio buttons here. The middle one should say Start External Program. This is going to allow you to attach your debugged code basically onto Revit. So Revit will start up and your code in debug mode will attach to it, and you can go through it line by line. So if you go to Browse, you're going to want to find Revit.exe. This might be different for everybody, but it'll typically be in your Autodesk Revit 2018. And then you're going to want to look for Revit.exe.
And just hit open.
Hit open. I was just waiting for people to make sure they got the right file location.
And
Hit
then
open.
so this is how you connect your code, your add-in to the actual project that you want to.
Yes, like you're able to run your project in debug mode.
Let's see.
So basically, when you hit the start button, assuming that in solution, the startup project is the project that's the Revit add-in, it'll start up with this external program called Revit.exe, and it'll attach your code to it.
Oh, okay.
So if we hit this start button, I think we need to change some settings for it to work. But it should actually start Revit for you.
And then it'll pop up with the error message.
So yeah, I should have waited, but I think it would have said in that message like that it's the drafting training add-in. I guess it didn't throw that exception. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why it didn't work, but we can
I've got
work
that
through it.
message on my screen if you want to see it.
Sure. Yeah, I might require some fidangling that we don't really have time to get this working. Oh, what did it say? Hit always load. Maybe I didn't create the add-in file because I was too busy explaining it. Oh yeah, mine is not in the correct. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what we should expect. Like, it threw an exception on startup.
Cool.
So the reason mine didn't work is I actually didn't update that .addin file, so Revit can't find my addin. So let me just do that. Share my screen. So drafting training, I need to look for drafting training 3. .app. Use that same add-in. D. Let's make sure I'm in the right build folder. I think it's this one. Oh no, this one's good. Sorry guys. Let's make sure that I have a unique GUID. Okay, and then now when I start my project, it should be able to find the add-in and throw the exception similar to your screen, Mike. That's drafting tab. Oh, I forgot to change the line too. But anyways, was everyone able to get this exception to get thrown?
Maybe. I'm
Maybe.
scared to start it.
Start it. Do it.
But what if it crashes my computer?
It's not going to crash.
You don't know that.
Drafting training 3. Let's leave that open. And honestly, like this add-in isn't doing anything, Jobo. It's just gonna give an error message when you open it. There we go.
Huh,
Now I have it.
mine says it doesn't exist.
Okay. You want to share your screen? Like we don't really have much time.
Sure.
I guess this is probably the last thing we do.
Failed to initialize.
So
Might be one of those text files I edited wrong.
it's probably the text file. It says drafting training.dll does not exist. So is your project called drafting training?
I think so, yes.
It looks like it's in drafting training 2, drafting training bin debug. Okay. So let's open up that .addin file.
Which file?
The .addin one and drafting. So in 2018.
Where am I opening it? Right here? Oh,
in
the
the
text
file in the
file.
file explorer. Open that text file. Not there. In the 2018 folder. Drafting training.addin. Change the name of Revit Addin app.app to drafting training.app. Oh no, never mind. Sorry, wrong line. Let's see. Drafting training. So let's make sure that it's the right
Right folder?
the right folder name and whatever. So go to Visual Studio. Hit the stop button in the center. Right click drafting training. Go to open folder and file explorer. It looks like you put a space. That's probably what's causing it.
Oh, and then just grab this.
Go to bin. Debug. Copy paste that. Before the, right there. If anyone needs to go, that's okay too. Go back to the File Explorer, Jobo. Does it looks like that was okay? Go back to the File Explorer debug. Type in drafting training. Yeah, it's because there's a space in the DLL name.
Oh, and then so no
So it can't
space.
find. No, keep it with the space, because every time this is going to get rebuilt. Every time you press that start button, that file is going to get recreated.
Oh, I just have to add a space here.
Add a space to the .dll. No, I think that's okay. I'm not sure actually.
This
Try
one?
there. Yeah. Go to Visual Studio.
Start though.
Just go to Visual Studio first, and go to the app.cs file.
App.cs file, this one.
You want to do drafting _ training. That's the actual name of your namespace. So go back to your .addin file. Put an underscore over there. And just like a disclosure, you should never use spaces when you're doing stuff with programming.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I used to do it all the time when I first started. I didn't
Save
know.
this and then hit
Yeah,
start.
push start. And yeah, you should be good now. Hit OK.
No, it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
It's okay. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. We can work after this, Jobo.
Okay, thank you.
But I guess in conclusion, guys, we were able to create the Revit Addin, get all this stuff in the background to get working. I'm probably going to do one more class next time. So we'll actually be able to get something to do something, like actually a command. Thanks,
Oh.
everybody.
Can I save what I've got, or do I need to, when I quit, will it
Yeah,
not?
save it. So yeah, so let me just share my screen. So if you guys want to save what you've done, there's these little 2 little file buttons. Click Save All. It'll save all your stuff. And next time you have a class, we can use it again.
If I just hit the X button and it didn't pop up with the save message, did everything just get deleted?
Yeah, you're screwed.
Oh,
No, I'm
okay.
just joking. Usually when you hit the X, it'll ask you if you want to save.
Okay, so that means I saved already.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Cool.
We'll
Thanks,
definitely have
Alan.
another
Alright,
class.
Thank you.
thanks,
Yep.
Alan.
Bye, guys.